Felina mai kako. Welcome to Keep It Aloha, a podcast that keeps it aloha by not zigging when you should zag, but sigging when you should zane. I'm your host Kamaka, and if you know anything about Aloha shirts, then this is the episode for you. We got an amazing guest today, but before we introduce him and head over to Hilo, I gotta remind you to check out our website at keepitaloha.com to get your KIA merch, or join our Patreon ohana at patreon.com/kamakadias to get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to this podcast. We're an independently run podcast, and all funds go to helping us bring you the best quality content every single week. If supporting us with money is not for you, but you still love listening to us, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It would mean the world to me, and it would actually help my show to heal up faster. We got an amazing guest today. Like I said, Kūhaʻo Zane is in the building. Well, we're actually going to his building, and he is just the son of an iconic man who brought you the best Aloha shirts in Hawaii. He's also an entrepreneurial mind, and he's just as impressive, or some might even say more impressive than his father. And he has big shoes to fill, coming from some Hama families. So let's get right into it. I don't gotta say anything more. Let's hop on our flight and head to Hilo and introduce our guest. Support for this podcast comes from Texaco in Hawaii, which features 58 convenient locations across the state. Fueling up at Texaco is fast and easy when you use the Texaco mobile app to pay at the pump. The Texaco mobile app is a contactless way to pay for fuel, so you can get in and out of the gas station quickly. Fuel your car and fuel yourself. Pick up your favorite local snacks and ice cold drinks at your neighborhood Texaco today. Texaco at Techron, driving performance. Our guest today is a designer and entrepreneur from the Big Island of Hawai'i. He is the creative director of Sig Zane and SZKaiao, and also serves as the president of the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, a nonprofit that employs his family's generational cultural insight through curriculum development, site restoration, consulting, and publishing. This father and sixth-generation hula dancer has performed at over 26 consecutive Merrie Monarchs and isn't stopping anytime soon. He has, maybe depending on the needs, yeah. He has collaborated with brands and companies such as Hurley, Nike, the Oregon Ducks, Slowtide, Aloha Collection, and Toyota Hawaii. He's a busy guy, and honestly, I don't even know how he has the time to do this podcast today, but I am so stoked to get to talk stories with him today. His name is Kūhaʻo Zane. Aloha, Kūhaʻo. Welcome to the Keep It Aloha podcast. How you doing?
Aloha mai. Thank you for having me, and especially thank you for coming to Hilo for this one.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Both Hilo native, so
yeah.
I think this is the most perfect spot to do it.
Oh, for sure. Mahalo.
I'm happy it worked out too. I don't know how many people know this. During COVID, everybody was locked in, and I was doing my thing where I was paying off my student loans, and I started this series. I think I called it Social Medium, and we did I had you as a guest for a live stream. I had you and a couple other people. So that was the first time I think I connected with you, and ever since then, I've just been following your work and such a big fan. You're doing amazing things. You and your whole ohana.
Yeah. Trying.
Yeah.
Especially there's some pretty large footsteps to follow, especially with some of the people that came before me. So trying to do my best to be able to uphold my part. But at the same time, I think that's the great thing about our Kanakaole ohana is that they encourage us to try to take what we've been given and push it forward, so.
Totally. I mean, when you talk about Kuleana, I don't know if there's any more pressure than anybody with that last name.
A little bit heavy to shoulders.
Yeah, for real. But we'll get into all of that. I want to start at the beginning.
Yep.
Where are you from? Where are you grad? And what was it like right now?
I am from Keaukaha. I still live in Keaukaha today, Hilo, Hawaii, and graduated from Hilo High, contrary to what people think. But graduated from Hilo High, and I still currently live in Keaukaha today, Homestead.
Yeah. So what kind of things were you into growing up?
I think, especially down in Keaukaha, I was definitely into bodyboarding growing up. And then my dad, who's originally from Manoa, from Kaneohe actually, when he moved over here, he was just super in love with the hiking, the fishing, the camping. And so when we were growing up, we got to go camping pretty often. And so I got immediately hooked to going whipping with my dad. There's just one picture, but I think I was maybe 10 or something when I caught my first omilu, and it ended up being a 10-pound omilu. So I've been lifelong hooked to going whipping and going holo holo. And then other than that, just bodyboarding, surfing, doing regular kid kind things over here.
Yeah. When you were growing up, your dad already started this?
Yeah. Actually, the company started in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
We turned 40 next year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But in 1985, I think I was 3 years old at the time.
Okay.
So I think for him, maybe it was a reaction to having me at the time, and he was like, "Oh, I gotta do something." So, but yeah, I grew up around the business, and then even when he was doing craft fairs in Oahu, he'd do multiple craft fairs a year, and then also even in the shop, I was like, organizing hangers and stuff.
Wow,
I was always around.
So you was like how your son is right now.
Yeah, basically. I think my dad, the pocket side, he definitely had me working as young as possible, and that's the same plan I have for my son.
That's free child labor.
Yeah, exactly.
As every parent should.
Yeah, it's payback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, so you ended up graduating from Hilo High, and then what did you do after that?
I graduated from Hilo High, and I took a year off. I wasn't really that good at school. I was actually pretty, like, there was more than a few years that I didn't think I was going to make it to the next grade. But because I had a few good teachers, Miss Nakamura from high school, from Hilo High, they kind of pushed me to follow some of my passions. And one of my passions was like, I really was into surf shorts at the time. So I wanted to kind of start off my own surf shorts brand, basically, and then open up a surf shop. That was my ideal goal. I think my grandpa told me, like, I wrote him a business plan to loan me some money so I could start off my surf shop. I'm pointing this way because our first place was right down over there. But yeah, he told me no. And then so I was like, oh, thanks.
Okay, grandpa.
But that in a way is a blessing in disguise, because I started to learn graphic design from my dad's partner at the time, Punavai Rice. And so he taught me Corel Draw. So this is like way back. Yeah. But I think I was in 9th or 10th grade at the time. So just learning what the graphic programs were like, and then starting off with t-shirts, to me, I feel that was a way better, a slow step forward rather than jumping and diving straight into a surf shop. So
yeah, right on.
By the time I graduated from Hilo High, I kind of had a small t-shirt brand. It's called Absolute Vision. Back in the day, I was just hustling t-shirts. There was always a Musubi girl, Ramona Noani, and then there was me selling t-shirts. But yeah, I got to know kind of like just the basics of business. And then right out of high school, I took a year break from school, and I was just doing graphic design, like contract work, doing small logos here and there. But other than that, pretty much just trying to figure out my way around like this idea of like creative business,
Yeah. Wait, I don't know if you noticed, because you just mentioned you were selling shirts right next to a Musubi girl. Yeah. And I just noticed downstairs, we're in downtown Hilo, there's a Musubi shop.
Oh yeah, there's a Musubi shop right next door.
Oh, how's that coming full circle? Is that Ramona downstairs?
I don't even know who that is downstairs. Yeah, this brand new place called Musubi's, but
check them out.
Yeah, I don't know. Musubi is definitely one of those items that I always think about, that like, if it was in a trap and you had to like stick your hand in, Musubi would want to be one of those items that definitely would catch me.
Totally.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, were you always like, did you have Kuleana already at that time to take over your family's legacy? Or were your parents and Ohana kind of like, hey, just do whatever you want. And, if you want, you can come work for the family business?
It's a great question. And the Kuleana part, I think, especially on the Kanakaole side, it does get heavy at times. And it's a lot of commitment for sure. But I think with my parents, they were relatively lax about it. Like, they were really trying to feel me out how much Kuleana I'd want to take on and how much I was interested in hula. I think I got tricked into starting dancing hula because my cousins started dancing too, my cousin Ulu, and then also Komakiiva. And so during that time, I always wanted to hang out with them. And so my mom guys, I was like, well, they're dancing hula. How about you start dancing too and see how you like it? So I started dancing at that time. And I didn't even really like tell people that I danced hula. I think, in the 90s, the machoism was American machoism was very heavy at the time. So I didn't really talk about dancing hula too much. But as I started to dance, I actually enjoyed the physicality of it, and especially our unique strain of kahiko that we hold. And so, yeah, I think I started to like it, but the Kuleana side didn't really come until way after I came back from college. So it was more getting to understand what the practice of hula iha'a is and being a part of it rather than acknowledging the kuleana just yet. I knew it was there, but I think now it's a lot clearer of how to uphold that kuleana portion, you know?
Totally. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I went Hawaiian immersion and
Yeah.
we had to do all the cultural practices. I didn't like it. I didn't. I would also lip sync when we oli.
Yeah.
I would hide in the bathroom doing pico.
Yeah.
And then go to class and they're like, "Where are you in pico?" I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
of
right next to
course.
chemo."
Yeah.
And then hula, I would start breakdancing when Kūhaʻo was teaching
Yeah.
us. I get in trouble and yeah, so I never was into that stuff, but it wasn't until I went to the Peace Corps and came back and I really missed our culture and I got back into it. I even took hula classes 2 years ago.
Oh,
as
nice.
an adult. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up going to design school after a year. I took a break after high school, and I ended up going to college in LA, the FIDM, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. But I ended up majoring in graphic design. I actually just did a lecture a keynote this past weekend at the UH Indigenous Innovation Conference.
Whoa.
I was like, oh, such big things. But I told them, I was like, I'm over here talking to you guys, and I went to school for literally like 17 and a half months, and that's it. But I think over that time, the graphic design was just for me to kind of learn a tool to be able to express some of the ideas or concepts that I had. And really, I think my schooling has been throughout my career, just having different mentors, making a ton of mistakes over the years, and just kind of like learning as you go. But other than that, I can't really take anything away from my path. I would have to say that every mistake or failure that I've had has led me to this point right now currently. So can't really take anything away from it.
Yeah, you learn nothing from success.
Yeah.
You learn everything from failure.
It's scary. It's scary. Sometimes when I feel the success too much, I'm like, something's wrong.
Gotta go wrong.
Something's happening.
Yeah, too good to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you end up coming back? So you went to college over there just for a year, and then what was it like a pool? Like you missed the aina, you missed the family, you missed the food, or you had enough. You learned, you roamed, and now you're ready to come home.
Anonymity. I was pretty stoked in LA that nobody knew who the Kanakaole family was, or there was no stadium named after your grandma or anything like that. And so I just loved being up there, just could do whatever I want basically, but learning graphic design and then really falling in love with the design process, and then also all of these other great designers that are out there, graphic designers or designers either way. And so for me, it was my time to really immerse myself in that idea of design. But at the same time, while I was up there, I was noticing that design and their creative process had so many parallels to Hawaiian creative process, especially when it came to hula and choreography type of thing. And so I saw plenty parallels, and I also saw plenty differences. And so I definitely missed hula at the time, and I wanted to come back. But I think I was having a little bit too much fun up there. I was enjoying myself a little bit. And then my dad was finally like, okay, you know what? We helped you pay for some of your college, but it's time for you to come back and start working for the company. And so I think it was on his request that I was like, okay, I will come back now.
And you never put up a fuss?
Okay. Yeah, maybe here and there. I just had it as a background in my head, but no, I never vocalized it. And as soon as I came back, I think the first thing I designed was we started to do some advertising, like just for new hiring employees type of thing, like little ads in the newspaper. And then starting to redesign some of the packaging, some of my earlier ones, and then also doing our fabric design. So my dad still does the original artwork. He hand cuts ruby lith. You can look it up online, but basically it's a clear film and a red film on each other, and he goes with an X-Acto and hand cuts into the red film, and when you peel away, that's the artwork that you have left.
That's crazy.
And we actually have one. Now, Melly, do you have that one? It's right over there.
Yeah, the thing I love about the Sig Zane shirts is everything has mana'o.
Yeah.
It's not just some flowers just to have flowers or some plants to have plants.
And that was a lot of that was because of my grandma, because my dad was dancing in the halo at the time.
So it comes a lot from hula.
Yeah, and so he was a student of the halo, and so it was actually my grandma that kept telling my dad, how important it is to educate. And so Sig Zane Designs just naturally became like a platform to be able to educate. But this is that ruby lift that you can see.
Wow.
So there's that, you can kind of feel like a slight edge to that.
Oh yeah.
To the cut right there. Yeah.
People can see.
But so
Yeah.
my dad still does 99% of the artwork that you see in our shops and throughout any of our products. But now we have a small design team. We have one designer here and two designers in Oahu, as well as my partner in Oahu, Zen, who kind of helps out manage the Sig and Smith shop, as well as the gallery that we're talking about, Kaiao Space. But yeah, it's basically the same idea of creating layout, creating design, and creating products that can continue to tell that same mission, or that same mission of educating about our culture.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta ask you this: is your dad like psychic, or does he have like special powers? Because this is what happened when I came a couple years ago with the guy Marky, and we did that video.
Yeah.
So we met him downstairs, and he was like, okay, grab shirts, and we're like, oh, you should pick it out for us. And he's like, okay, let me see. He looked at us, and he's like looking through shirts, and so he ended up picking this green, like light green one with la'i for Markian. And earlier, before, like he just got in like the day before. First thing we did with him was pick la'i and make a lei.
Interesting.
And then he was talking about like what color does he like? He's like, oh, green. He's like, oh yeah, because I think green looks good.
ESP or something. I don't know.
So he picked out the green one for him, and then for me, he goes to this white one and it had like tracks or something.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful shirt, and he's like, okay, this one means like ala pono, or is like a something like that.
Kupono,
Ala kupono.
Yeah.
You know what my middle name is?
Really?
Kupono.
No way.
Kupono.
Crazy.
That was crazy.
I don't know.
I was like straight chicken skin moment.
Does
he do that all the time?
He does do that. He does have the ability to do that. I don't know how he does that, but even back in the day, like I remember they went on a hula trip one time, and I stayed home. And this is one of the first times I stayed home all by myself. I think I was a teenager at the time, and I was so excited to like stay home. One of the first things I wanted to do was take. I had a Ford Ranger at the time. I wanted to take it for a drive. Do a beach cruise all by myself. I didn't even have my license at the time. I got into the car and I was just about to like put it into reverse. And there was like this little ribbon tied onto the steering wheel. And it was a note from my dad and said, "Where do you think you're going?" And I was like, how did he know? I was tripping out. I was like, oh, okay, I better get out of the car. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that is my dad's superpower. He's able to read minds, or he's able to see like how things happen. I don't know. It's interesting.
He can kilo like that.
Yeah, his kilo skills is on point.
Yeah. No, I thought that was super trippy. But yeah, so if you're new to, I don't know, the Hawaii space, and you're not familiar with the Kanakaole family, to me at least, I think you guys are probably the most prominent family in Hilo.
Oh,
like
it's a big.
The stadium is named after your tutu.
Yeah.
And just like that, on top of also the most prominent Aloha shirt in Hawaii, you like have both sides of your family is just like the biggest in its own space. So I'm just sharing this so people know like the weight that comes with that. And especially with the hula side, like halau o kikuhi, right?
Yep.
I think, are you guys all obligated to hula? Everybody in your family?
We're never obligated. Kind of like I was saying earlier. Yeah, like I got tricked into it. But I think the halau is always there.
Okay.
And I think especially in the past maybe 2 generations, we've started to expand just beyond just the halaus. And so we have the local i'a, or I think within our different facets of our family, we have different aspects of cultural practice that we like to uphold. But the halau is still kind of like our center and our base. And it makes sense because especially being ohana that has inherited all of the, oli from all of our repertoire from Pele and Hi'iaka, anything that has to do with volcanic activity, that has always been passed on through the halau. And so I think our knowledge base comes from the piko of the halau, but can extend itself into multiple different cultural practices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if like a cousin or whatever doesn't want to hula, do they get like shunned in the family? You're like, like hula. Or like, this person don't know how to hula.
Nah.
How it's siblings, they rag on each other.
That is funny. I wouldn't say that it hasn't happened, but at the same time, to each its own,
Yeah.
If the halau is meant for you and you dance great, perfect, then it's there for you to fulfill. If you contribute in other ways, if you contribute through other practices, then that's completely fine too. I mean, at the same time, you know, if you're a good dancer, then you want to be on stage. If you're a bad dancer, you can choose your own route, you know?
Maybe go take pics on the side. Take
And yeah,
videos.
you know, everybody has their own path.
Okay, right on. So I wanted to bring up this one thing that you shared on Sam Potter's video. Good friend of ours, friend of the podcast, past guest Sam Potter.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He did a video with you, and at one point you were talking about how like you drive and it's just like walls of trees, and then you ended up talking about that, and then you also shared about how if there's generational trauma, there's also generational talent.
Yeah.
And that was just like a mic drop moment for me. What makes you say that? And you know, looking back at our history, you know, we have a lot of trauma, and that's stuff that people talk about all the time that people are still dealing with. But I've never heard of the perspective of generational talent.
Yeah.
It was such a good twist on that.
I see again. Me and Sam I think we're up at Kipukaki or something like that. And we're walking around over there. Maybe it's Kipukua. But as I was talking, I was kind of building that thought process in my head. So I can't say that I plan to say that or anything, but I do believe it though. And it's been something that I've been talking, especially with a couple of people that are mentors of mine, kumu of mine. That idea that, yeah, if generational trauma can be passed down, and I think everybody's pretty clear on that, you know, then at the same time, there got to be an amount of generational ike that can be passed down too. And how I like to look at it is kind of like a mana endowment, like the idea that there is this practice here, and if you have the right amount of rigor, the right amount of tradition, and the right amount of discipline, that you can contribute to this mana endowment that you'll pass on to the next generation too. And my dad feels the same way, even though, you know, he's Pake, but he feels that his ability to hand cut and do this kind of artwork comes way too easy to him. And he almost feels like he has an ancestor previously that has done like paper cutting or something of that sort, because he feels that he was already given so much tools to be able to do this artwork, you know? And in that same way, we feel that if I can contribute or commit a certain amount of my life to hula or to oli or to any practice, that eventually that discipline will pay off not only in my lifetime, but pay off in my child's lifetime, you know? And so this idea that there's a mana endowment up there in the sky and you just need a certain amount of rigor and discipline to contribute to that for the kids to come.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Jordan and I talk about this. So Jordan brings this up to me, how, you know, if you just look back to your ancestors and you'll see like where you're kind of meant to be. Like if you're in the water and it feels right, like, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like he talks about like the people that came from the Philippines. Like why are they water people? Because they used to like fish and be in the water all the time. So when he's a water baby, you know? And so that's why swimming and surfing like feels right to him. And I don't know, I'm like mostly Portuguese and Asian, so I don't know what my talents are. I guess talking, and that's what I'm doing. I mean, you know, I'm fulfilling my kuleana in talking.
And that's why we have a podcast.
That's why we have a podcast. So, you know, it actually does make a lot of sense when you kind of reflect on it. And say, even if you're Hawaiian and you're in a lo'i or something, and there's like a physiological effect that, or some feeling that you feel being in those spaces that your kupuna used to be in.
And at the same time, I think as a Kanaka, you have your ancestors here, and if you learn the right, let's say like Naomoku or something like that, if you learn the right way to request that mana or to request that energy, that they're required to give it to you. They're required to support you. And so I think that that's also another, like, that's a Kanaka perspective that my mom passed on to me. But like, you know, your Almaku and your ancestors are there, and they're required to support you. And so to know that you have that kind of relationship with them, that you can, the idea like when you go to the bank and you withdraw money from the bank, in that same way, learn the right way to request and withdraw some of the ike that they have or some of the strength that they have, and they can give that to you today to be able to take on any challenge that you have ahead.
Wow, that you explaining that just gave me this really good visual of like watching cartoons growing up. And, like Dragon Ball Z, when they're like powering up, they're gaining chi, or like when Goku has to ask like Earth, give me your strength, and he's doing the spirit ball. So totally. I think that makes a lot of sense. Where you're just kind of like withdrawing or like asking for strength to do a certain task.
And I think there's mana is such a like an overused term nowadays, but still in the essence, if you look at it as energy, I think there's stored energy in multiple different areas. And this might be a Kanaka perspective. I don't know. It's kind of stuff that my mom talks about, but there's stored energy within your aumakua, within your ancestors. And so if you're calling upon them to be able to help you out with the task ahead, there's also stored energy in aina. And so if my lineage comes from Ka'u, or if my lineage comes from Kohala, there may be certain power locations or power areas that the mana is still stored over there. And so learning how to request or withdraw some of that mana for your employment there too. And so I think that understanding that this idea of mana and your interaction with it, there's multiple different facets to it. There's mana in aina, there's mana in your ancestral, in your mokuoho, and then there's also mana that you can acquire doing your cultural practice on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's multiple different ways to look at it.
Yeah, like that was a big realization that I just had over here. I've never looked at it like that, like withdrawing from a bank and like asking for like it's like when people pray, people manifest.
I don't know if you ever went to like some place that you have ancestors at, and like maybe you see like a certain ho'ailona or something like that. And so I think that my mom likes to say that the ocean has memory. She says that pretty often. And so in that same way, the aina has a memory too. And so that aina knows that you have a pilina to that space, and so that could be a way that if you're feeling down, or if you're feeling depressed or something, that reconnecting to those kind of places to be able to rejuvenate yourself too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that when I just like even come to Hilo, like coming from Oahu, like I feel like, I don't know, it's like a breath of fresh air. I mean, maybe the air is better here too as well. But I really do feel that like it's like I just breathe it in a breath of fresh air. So yeah, that's awesome. So you have all this kuleana growing up, and now you're just like awamuing it to the best of your abilities. You're doing a bunch of super cool projects all the time. You've done a bunch of cool collaborations. What's the goal for you right now? Like what's your motivation to do everything that you're doing?
I think back in the day, because it's safe to say that I enjoyed like a pretty good amount of success to a certain degree doing collaborations or doing these projects early on. And then, for a certain point in my life, like just winning a graphic design Hoku Hano Hano award was like one of my biggest goals,
Oh, they have that?
Yeah, they have that.
Oh, I didn't.
And now we have a bunch of us winning it. I think back in the day, Nelson Makua, he was one of them that won a bunch of those Hoku Hano Hanos. And I remember like thinking like, oh, that'd be cool if I could win one. And so I won a few of them over the years. And that was like the ceiling of the success that I imagined at the time. And, my partner, my other half, Shea, we have these conversations all the time. And one of the most sobering conversations that I had with her was just the idea that it's not enough to be a successful brown person, because I think I was maybe drunk on that success back then. It's not enough just to be that person that people see to be inspired by. I think it's even more of your responsibility to implement systems of change that can allow for better success moving forward, And so I think at that time I was just like, I'm a successful Hawaiian guy. Perfect. That I reached it already. But having that conversation was really like a catalyst for me to be like, okay, let's look at what the systems look like here in Hawaii, and how can we use, just like this platform of a podcast, how can we use these systems to really do essential and impact change in the systems for better success or for better avenues. And so that's really where I feel, especially in the past, like 8 years, I'd say, I've really been trying to work a little bit in the background too, and trying to figure out how can we make better opportunity for ʻike kupuna to thrive here in Hawaii and to better direct or better help decision making too as we move forward. And so that's been one of the things that I've been really like thinking about and working on. And Kamu, is one of my friends, and as well as a mentor of mine. He likes to say it too. It's like sustainable is a Hawaiian word. The idea that we've been living on this island for 1,500, even more years, and we didn't break the hardware. Our software that we used as people, how we interacted with our hardware of this finite resource of Aina, we had a really good software that was sustainable for 1,500 years. So he likes to say, we have 1,500 years of R&D in this idea of sustainability. And so how do we harvest some of those concepts or harvest some of those practices so that we can implement them and maybe repair some of the software that's happening today? Because obviously we see a disconnect between Kanaka and Aina. And so how can we use some of that, some of the practices that have been passed on to us? How can we implement them today to try and repair some of that disconnect? Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, that's beautiful that you say that, because I don't know if I talked about this with somebody else on the guest or maybe just off the podcast with people, is that our kupuna had all the answers already. Like we don't got to chat GPT, Google stuff, like how to do this. Like they've already done everything. They've sailed the world. They've grown crops. They've had a healthy lifestyle. I read the Waianae diet. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No, I didn't.
But it was just about like how they did a test group of people to get on this type of people like diabetes, high cholesterol.
Was that the Mao Farms one?
I don't think so. It was like on Waianae.
Okay.
Some I forget what it was, but I think it was in the 90s. 80s. I forget. I read it. I think I gave it to Zach, Zach, after I read it. But so they took out all these people and they put them on a strictly native Hawaiian diet, which was like kalo, ulu, steamed stuff, fish, seaweed, stuff like that. So they did it. I think it was like a 6-week period, and the people that they had to use like insulin for diabetes or and whatever, they basically like reversed all of that, and they didn't have to use it anymore, and they lost like I think about 20 pounds or something, crazy, just on a strictly native Hawaiian diet. So like there too, is the answers for like healthy living, healthy lifestyle. But we've come so far from that.
That's what at this conference that I was at, the Indigenous Innovation Conference, that was one of the things that they were vocalizing. It was probably the same study that they were referencing too, but the idea that Hawaiian culture is health of people. And so sometimes people disconnect it. Sometimes it's looked at as entertainment. Sometimes it's looked at as, oh, that's the Hawaiians over there doing their thing. But I think some of those protocols or some of those, daily cycles that we held back then as culture, that was preventative health, And so we didn't have to have this reactionary health system currently that we have right now.
So instead of like sick care, it's, preventative health. I think that's something that I think something that I've been more conscious about since the whole COVID time. It's like, okay, well, if I just don't get sick, I take care of my body now, then I don't gotta pay all this money for to get better.
I'm getting old, so I have to start
look
paying
at
attention.
me. I'm learning firsthand not taking care of your body, and I got another surgery coming up.
Oh man.
So hopefully in my 32nd year of life, I'll be good. There's so many more things I still have to do. Okay. Well, I want to take a quick shishi break, and then we'll come back with social media questions. What if we told you the next 3 times you fill your tank, you could save money? Well, at Texaco in Hawaii, it's true. You can get $1 off per gallon on your next 3 visits when you download the Texaco app and join Texaco Rewards. Earn points on every fuel transaction and qualifying in-store purchases at participating Texaco stations. Download the app and join to get started today. Visit TexacoHawaii.com for details. All right, we're back from a quick shishi break. Let's get right into it. First question, I had to do this because it's from my brother, Mike Alani. He asked, are you going to bring back the brand Ethnic?
Oh, that's so back in the day. I think that came, so that was called Ethnic Creative way back in the day. And that was, I want to say that was 2004 or something like that, which, geez, 20 years ago. 2005. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'd love to bring it back. There was a couple times that, like, I think I was sharing that I was doing graphic design when I was in high school. So if that was maybe 30 years of graphic design coming up soon, that maybe that'd be a good opportunity to bring some of the ideas and brands back, because even the people that I went to high school with, they're like, oh, you got to bring Absolute Vision back. And then, during that time when I had the shop down on Malmo Street, I think ethnic was big during that time. Not big, but popular.
Yeah. Amongst the Hilo people.
Yeah, amongst the Hilo people. But at the same time, it was the same conversation. It was like, what kind of conversation stories or aesthetics can we pull together as an indigenous group or as an ethnic group, and how can we put that on a platform of clothing, which is so similar to what Sig Zane Designs does already.
Awesome.
Maybe
one day.
30th anniversary.
Okay. There we go. All right. So when we were talking about people, I was like coming up to you like, hey, you should do this shirt, you should do that one. That's Micah to me. Hey, you should do this. You should get this guy. And every time, and he listens to every episode, so you're gonna hear this, Micah. I'm talking to you. It's like, oh man, you should have asked him this. Oh, you should have said this. Oh, how can you never say our family's from Kūhaʻo when he said Kūhaʻo that one time? Like, every single time.
Like, he's your board member.
I know. Yeah. Okay, I'll go back in time and say all of that. Anyways, okay, let's skip over to the Patreon question from our biggest Patreon supporter, Jerry Salamante. He asks, who initiated the inclusion of your grandmother, Edith Kanakaole, onto the American Women's Quarter Series? And where is the farthest city/state from Hawaii that you've personally seen it circulated?
Wow, that's a great question. And I still don't know the answer to that. I have somewhat of a kind of selfish, self-centered answer, but at the same time, I think, my grandma's achievements are so large that it was definitely her achievements over the years that garnered that achievement. But I was working with this lady, Aloha, who was at the Honolulu Museum of Art, and she was doing a Hawaiian-based art installation, Hawaiian artists and designers. And so myself and my cousin Ely, we did 2 installations in there. She did a furniture design installation, and then I did actually this rain wall. So that wall over there is I just created it as a separation within this studio, but the idea of it was that my name Kūhaʻo Zane means rain from clear sky, and so she saw that design while I was like, I don't know if it was a Zoom or a FaceTime with her or something. She's like, I want that installed at the museum. We had a great relationship over that time, and then eventually she was on a committee that was selecting the individuals that would be celebrated, and I got told that she submitted my grandma's name, and so I think that's one way that I swear, my grandma passed in 1979, and she's still like pushing the bar for all of us, like if there was a kulia kanu'u, she would be at that pie. She'd be up there. But yeah, it was, I think it was a collective conversation, and she was put into that little small group of all, collectively great individuals, and got selected for that honor.
Awesome.
The furthest away, I think Georgia was the furthest away so far.
Nice.
I barely even use cash nowadays.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to pay with cash just to wait for that one time that I get. But it's funny. One of my friends was in Arizona, and he texted me a picture of the change that he got, and it had my grandma's quarter on it too. But that was a huge one. And then even I didn't design it. Some people asked me if I designed it. I didn't design it, but both me, my dad, as well as a few people of our family, we all got to kind of consult on it and make sure that certain parts of it were correct, like having Monaka in there, having the Homaikaike, and then how her hair like flows in it too. And so we wanted to make sure that her likeness was recognizable, but at the same time, something that people would be able to see out there and recognize as well.
Are you happy with it?
Oh yeah, I'm totally happy with it. It's amazingly complex, because if you look at some of the other people's quarters, they're relatively simple in design. This one has like so much in it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm totally happy with it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because you know sometimes you see, I don't know if you keep up with basketball at all, but Dwayne Wade had like a statue that they revealed for him, and it looks so bad.
That's rough.
There's been other stuff like that too, other big athletes or people, and so I'm happy the quarter came out nicely.
That's that level of success kind problems. So they're building statues of you.
Okay, and then he follows up. Does your mother still have any of the original custom pareo that your father gifted her while they were still dating? Maybe preserve/display those like museum pieces. This guy knows.
Wow,
everything.
Did his homework.
Yeah.
I believe there's one pareo that my mom has still, but I just ran into an auntie in Hana, and she was there in our earlier days when it was still like craft fair days, and one of them that she showed me a picture of, she literally brought it to me. We were having this event at Alakukui, and she brought it to me, and she's like, look, this is your dad's signature back then. So I don't know if he signed it himself or something like that. But yeah, to date, my mom has a bunch. But to date, that one that lady brought to me, I think that's the oldest one that I've seen that is still in good shape type of thing. Secondly, my dad brought out this Aloha shirt, one of his favorite Aloha shirts from way back in the day. And he was wearing the Aloha shirt, I guess, when they're dating. I still don't like talking about this, but when they were dating, and he wore this shirt, but the shirt has Iʻeʻie design on it, and Iʻeʻie is like one of the highest ranking plants in the Hawaii. In the Kinolau, Kuahu, and I think because my dad was wearing an Iʻeʻie, and my mom was able to recognize it, maybe that helped the conversation a little bit more, type of thing. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask my mom that question. I don't know if I have a straight answer for that one.
Well, would your dad go on if your mom came on the podcast? They do them together?
That might be an angle. That might be a strategy. You gotta remember the strategy. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna keep chasing him down for years. I hope you know that. Okay.
He's been so he's CEO, of course, and then I definitely have been taking a lot more of the reins, especially in the past 2 years. But his title now has evolved to babysitter, and so that's he's been a little bit more elusive lately.
Yeah. I just want to get all the legends on, and parents are legends. Okay, and last one from Jerry. If your grandfather loaned you money to open a surf shop in the 10th grade and it became very successful, how do you think your life's path would be different from today? Or what would you be doing if not the lead designer for Sig Zane Designs?
Wow, thank you, Jerry. I can honestly say I've never thought about that. I probably would have ran into failure a lot quicker, especially at that time. And I think even now, even when we have small projects, I always try to iterate and develop our products a lot quicker, but in small iterations, rather than taking it big and then having a huge failure in front of your audience. So I think luckily he said no, because I think definitely I probably would have failed epically in front of a lot of people too, and maybe it would have made me a little bit more shy and a little bit less risky to be able to do another initiative like a surf shop. So thank you to my gungung for telling me no.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's it all happens in the perfect timing.
Yeah,
like maybe you just weren't ready back then.
Proper cadence.
Yeah. Okay, next question comes from Kewalanipili _. This person says, I loved your series with Toyota. Do you have any fun or funny stories from filming you can share with us that wasn't shown on YouTube? He was telling me.
I was telling him some background stuff that was happening. Maybe that's for an in-person conversation.
Yeah. We have to ask the other parties involved.
Yeah. Yeah, but no. The Toyota series was epic, and I think that was a perfect capsule in time to be able to have such talented individuals. How's this guy, Gooch, to have Kimmy, to have Justin, all of us to be up there, and plus that place that they're working on up there, Mauna Loa is like such a beautiful area. Plus, it's the best hunting zone, you know, and then I think just being able to cook and hang out with them and, you know, have a good amount of iced teas available on set.
On the rocks, iced tea on the rocks.
Yeah, iced tea on the rocks. It was literally lifetime memories. And I think, you know, I still work with Toyota here and there. I'm not on their ambassador team anymore. But I think that during that time, that was really innovative on their part to be able to go after marketing or go after an audience in a completely new type of way, especially for car dealerships, you know.
Totally.
So I applaud them, and I appreciate them putting that whole series together. That Forge to Feast was still
even the Holo series.
Yeah, the Holo series was a super good one too. Bunch of talented guys, but the funny thing is, you know, my life is a little hectic at times, and my schedule's kind of nuts. But I just finished the Kamehameha Day hula. We had a kahiko show up at the statue in Kohala, and then just finished that, and I had to drive all the way down to basically, you know, to Mauna Loa and to Justin's property, 2 hours something drive, and then 4-wheel drive all the way up. So when I left Hilo, I had to pack up all of my hunting gear, plus pack up all of my hula, a'ahu and everything, and just be prepared for an epic weekend. And I think after that, I had to go back to Hilo for something too. So, there's a lot of things happening in the background during that time.
Yeah, I guess it makes it more memorable.
Yeah, but you know, you can trust that if Gooch is on set, there's always things happening behind the scenes that is cracking us up.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. I love that guy. Okay, next question comes from my sister Kanoile Hua. She says, "What's been your favorite collaboration to date?"
Wow,
Oregon ducks, huh?
Yeah,
I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I think the Oregon Ducks would definitely be, I mean, although it was more, you know, doing the uniforms for that team, that it was a collaboration of that sort. And we did have, like, you know, a few items available to public. But to me, I never thought that I would have, like, you know, 5 Nike designers working alongside and figuring out how to translate these Hawaiian concepts, but also these Polynesian concepts over to these designers so that they could implement them onto the uniforms too. And so a lot of people don't really know it, but from the helmet all the way down to the cleats all had separate designs on them, and everything was a design call that had a story or narrative built into them. And so to me, I would say, to the nth degree of being Sig Zane Designs, of sharing mo'olelo through aesthetics or through design, that project was probably the highest degree. And so even one part, I have this part of my design process called the Makovalu design method. And it's the idea of Makovalu to view things on all levels, especially our language and our oli. But I was able to present that Makovalu to the Nike designers. And from that portion of it, they kind of encouraged me that, like, hey, this design method that you figured out, it's definitely Hawaiian in nature, but it made it so much easier for them to take in some of the mo'olelo and understand it. And so for me, one of the biggest dividends from that collaboration was the idea that they had me double down on this methodology. And now, you know, I was kind of telling you earlier, but I'm looking forward to doing a small lecture series at UH Manoa on Hawaiian design theory. And so, I don't know, now collaborations, I think now collaborations wise, there's been a lot of them, and all of them are super fun because they speak to different lifestyle aspects. But now I've been able to, like, see what are the dividends that come from these collaborations. But I'd say Oregon Ducks definitely is one of the highest out there.
I mean, they should run it back this year. With, they got Dylan Gabriel, right?
They have one, yeah, right.
Just
And they
bring it
have
back.
one more use of the design. So hopefully they run it back.
You can't just send them an email like, "Hey, it would be really good to
I actually
wear it
tried.
this year."
I think I
They're
tried.
number one in the nation right now.
They just released a dunk. They just released a dunk shoe, an SB dunk, and it had our design on the shoe. I think I saw it on one of the fan accounts or something like that. But I emailed them. I was like, "So what? Where's these dunks?" But yeah, I don't know if some of the designers that we worked with, they moved on to other departments or anything. But that was perfect as it all came together at that time.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
hey, Oregon Ducks, Dylan Gabriel, if you're
Yeah.
watching this, tell them to use the Sig
Let's
Zane
get it.
Oregon Ducks design again. I'm gonna tag you in this.
During that game, I actually went up for that game, but that was
saw
during
that,
COVID. And so that was awesome. But at the same time, I was the only person in that stadium. I'd love to see it when the stadium comes alive,
Let's make it happen. All right. Next question comes from Ha'ahel_Vai. This person says, how has fatherhood impacted your artistry and perception of legacy?
Wow, these guys coming in with hard questions.
Yeah, at least it's not about the price of the shirts, though. That's what she was worried about,
yeah. We can have a whole conversation about the price of a
Oh man,
shirts.
you just see how it's made and the work it takes into it. And take all my money.
I appreciate that. I think I've always had an understanding of lineage, but now it's just so much more tangible. And I think being a little bit more careful in how I plan my life, and then also how I execute certain things. Like I just got a jet ski from Sea-Doo not too long ago. I'm doing some work with Sea-Doo, and so I've been going out on the jet ski a lot more. And even more so while I'm out there, I'm like, I need to make it back. Like, sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, let's go run them hard. Now I'm like, oh no. I have a reason to be able to pass on my legacy to somebody that's living, that's right in front of me, that I take care of on a day-to-day basis. And so I think now even more so, it's just so tangible. And then on top of that, if there was any way for you to really become efficient with your schedule, it would be changing diapers in between emails. A lot of times I start writing the email and then maybe I'll, go onto social media or something and then, do something else. But now I know that my son's only going to give me a certain amount of time available during the day. So I have to be efficient and get as much done as possible. So to answer that question, I would say, one, somebody tangible that I can focus the legacy on. I've never even had that conversation before. And then two, just trying to be a lot more efficient so that I can be there for him.
Okay. Awesome. Great answer. All right. Last question. These are a set of questions. Comes from Aloha. This person says, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. Where do you want to see Sig Zane Designs in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah. So next year we're going to be turning 40, and we have a few fun collaborations happening throughout the year. But I think for me, as well as I have a product team called the Kilohana Group within Sig Zane Designs, and our main job of the Kilohana Group is to kilo the hana ahead, And so the idea of making sure that we have a product range, that the mo'olelos are told, that we have all of the vendors and everything aligned so that we can have products, 6 months in advance, 12 months in advance. And the great thing about doing the internal work on that is it gives us a little bit more ability and a little bit more intentionality to share our mo'olelos or our stories or our cultural narrative even further and more so. And we can even spread it amongst multiple different platforms, no matter if it's through a podcast or if it's through a new product or a new accessory. And so I think on the outside, it's still, hopefully we're doing the work to be able to upkeep Sig Zane Designs at the level that my dad has brought it to, both my mom and my dad has brought it to. And at the same time, I think we're doing a lot of internal work so that we can be a little bit more intentional and efficient on how to share these stories properly and build the platform even further. So I'd say in the next 20 years, or let's say 10, by the time we turn 50, I would want to make sure that internally we're efficient and have enough processes and systems in place to be able to grow beyond the 10-year mark and even into the 20-year mark. But one of the biggest things is that I feel like my dad really kind of set the mold of how to be successful in Hawaii, especially as a company. And so for me, I would just prefer to continue to further that out. And if it's through collaborations or if it's going into, new types of companies, because it's still the same mission statement, but into different types of companies, then I think that would be, that's the position I'd want Sig Zane to hold that makua position, especially within this industry currently right now.
Yeah. Do you ever feel pressure to, I don't know, you guys are pretty much at the top of the mountain. You got a Mount Rushmore of,
Oh my goodness.
certain categories, and you guys are up there. Do you ever feel pressure? Like you have to keep, I don't know, growing? Because like, how do you grow when you're already like so big,
Yeah. No, that's a good, I think
about that with my podcast. Just like, what now?
Well, I mean, your platforms has gotten to one of the biggest platforms, especially currently right now. So I applaud the work. I don't know. For me, Edith is on my Rushmore. My mom's on my Rushmore, and so I think George Helm's on my Rushmore. So like, when you look at those kind of Uncle Mac Poi Poi, that's my Rushmore. I think when you're looking at those kind of individuals, there's still so much more work to do. And maybe not so much thinking about growth as my intention, but having fun while you're doing it and letting that be the directive,
Yeah.
Fun, impact, and that will lead to growth.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was just like, I never thought about asking other people that about Mount Rushmore of like something.
Yeah.
So I got to write that down so I don't forget to ask other guests, like, who's your Mount Rushmore of like,
I actually have it.
Activists.
I have it. I have it on my, I have this like whole list
of like
of individuals that I've either been mentored by or looked up to over the years.
Shout them out.
But just off the top, I have Alfred Shaheen, John Charlot, George Helm, Vladimir Ossipoff, Uncle Mac Poi Poi, Uncle Skippy, John Whitehead, Dwayne Karisu, Pharrell, Kamu Enos. So there's just like been mentors. Ajit Man, she gave me like a lot of insight. She does narrative work, and so she majors in psychology, but narrative work, and so it's really important to understand, like, as an individual, what kind of stories, not only that you tell other people, what kind of stories do you tell yourself? Because that's going to develop your identity, to a certain degree. And so be really intentional about those stories that you tell yourself, because you're going to remember those and it's going to get embedded into your subconscious. And so just being intentional about that. But anyway, all those people that I read off, there's, and then plus there's my grandma, there's my mom, Auntie Pua. There's so many individuals out there that are my Rushmore. Yeah.
Awesome. Super cool. Love that. All right. And the next one is, what are 2 to 3 big dreams you have for the company that gets you really, really excited? I don't know if you kind of just covered that in what you said, but if not just for this company, what about like other things? Because I know you're working on a really big project.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share that as much as you can.
Well, one for this year, or this upcoming year. I'm a fan of other legacy companies out there. And so to me, next year, it's our opportunity to have fun and do collaborations with those other legacy companies that are out there. And so for me, that's always fun. The collaboration process is fun. Seeing what kind of threads or originality that they have as a company, and what kind of parallels do we have as a company, and where can they meet through design, So that's always like a fun part of collaborations. And then doing the internal work is also another big one, like doing internal systems and processes as a company so that we can be more pa'a and so that we can move into the future too. But yeah, one of the big companies that I've been working on lately has nothing to do with Aloha shirts. And it's actually...
You probably don't want to wear an Aloha shirt when you're doing that work.
Or we'll make a specialty Aloha shirt.
like a dry fit long
sleeve one or something.
Fluorescent maybe.
I got pulled into this group, but it's called Merrie Metrics, and it's a soil analysis company. And the idea that we can do soil analysis, and actually there's soil labs that exist in Hawaii that you can send your soil samples to and then get an analysis back, carbon, elements, age. And so I think that part existed, but only within the UH system. And so right now there's actually a lab. So whenever you do your soil samples, you have to actually send it off to Ohio. And so that's a part of the soil analysis equation. But one part that I think was cool, or something that I thought was a good aspect or perspective to bring to that company, was how can Kanaka perspective inform our soil analysis? I like to look at, especially for us in the Hilo, where you learn about these different kinolau. So like from everything from Ie to Koa to Maele to Lawa'e to Palapalai, Pala'a, all of these different kinolau that are important to our kuahu, they all interact with the soil. And so maybe there's specific soil signatures that are a part of these different kinolau. And so I see these parallels between our cultural practice and the ability to see, this metrics side of the equation, especially when it comes to our cultural practices. And so the joint idea is this idea of Merrie Metrics and trying to use Kanaka practices as well as perspectives to direct the soil analysis. And so I'm really excited, and Purple Maia is going to be jumping in on this company. And we're really excited to see what kind of projects that we can work on. We already have a project with Hili and No'eo up at Huimau and Pa'uilo. They have like 1,500 acres, like from Mauka all the way down to Makai over there. And one of the cool parts is that they have a lot of its plantation area, so it's all sugarcane at the top. But in the little like valley areas, or in the little gulch areas, around this gulch, in those little gulch areas, there's actually these little like kipuka of kinolau. And so like you'll see like the Ie right next to an ohia, right next to Pala'a, right next to Palapalai. And it's crazy to see that this ecosystem was kept within that space, Then we can do a compare and contrast study between the plantation soil as well as this kipuka soil, and figure out maybe how can we bring this plantation soil back to an abundance level that happened previously. And so that's one of the biggest projects that I've been working on, and my partner Dan on that one. He's been doing a lot of the work, especially on the Aina work, and we have a small team that we've been working with at Purple Maia. So that's one that I'm really excited about.
Sounds so cool.
It'll start to come to public. Definitely this following year.
How can people support?
You can go to merriemetrics.com, and then also it's on Instagram too, Merrie Metrics. But I think for right now we're still in that iteration stages. But I think probably by spring next year we'll start to be a little bit more public. And then the idea is that if you're a hula aiha practitioner or a hula kuahu practitioner, you have an understanding of the blooming cycles in a certain aina or in a certain region. And so how can that be insight that lends itself with a scientific metric backing it, How can we make maybe like your Levaita or how can we make them the scientists of that space? And so just really trying to highlight the uniqueness and the regional uniqueness that we have here in Hawaii, especially the biodiversity that we have here, but at the same time try to get some metrics and numbers behind that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like looking back to look forward.
Looking back to look forward, because right now, if as a company, GDP is one of the main things that you get judged upon if you're a successful company. But I think the real question is, what does Aina aligned success look like? Yeah.
Cool. I can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah. I'm just stoked because we got to make some hats and t-shirts. It's funny to feel that excitement to wear like a new company.
Other than Okay, last question. Is there any interest in opening a full-time store internationally, like Japan?
Wow. We actually had our clothing in multiple stores in Japan. The nature of the business, especially our business, majority and the core parts of our lines in Sig Zane Designs are made in Hawaii, and so printed, sewn, and designed in Hawaii. The printed part of the equation and the sewn part of the equation is actually really difficult, and I applaud my peers that are out there that are doing the same thing. It's actually really hard to pull off, and so pulling off a made in Hawaii product is always what we want to kind of focus on. But at the same time, just like the Holopali shirt that you have on right now, trying to do some of the fabrics that are a little bit cooler, a little bit more breezy, and having fun with those kind of styles, I think falls in line, but we still share the same mo'olelo between the two types of products. That said, doing something in Japan has always been a fancy, especially for my dad too, because he appreciates the maybe no more Kokis right now, but definitely airplanes.
The nice Hilo ambiance.
I think my dad has always had a fascination and appreciation for Japanese craftsmanship, and so we had a brand called Forest Cloud, and that was actually within multiple department stores in Japan, and we've actually been talking about rebuilding and re-releasing that at a certain point, and maybe a standalone shop might be a part of that equation.
Whoa,
well, actually, Zen, who's been with us for 8 or 9 years or something like that, he's actually in Japan right now at a fabric show. So
okay, cool.
Maybe there's some of those conversations that can bring it back.
Yeah, we're planning a podcast in Japan.
Oh, sick!
For next year.
Yeah, tell me.
Maybe we gotta get you guys involved in that.
Yokohama, Kamakura, the Shonan district. There's so much nice areas over there.
We wanna do it with Konishiki, the swimwear.
Yeah.
We should bring a size trip.
He actually has a few custom ones, but I don't know. I heard he's a lot skinnier now. Yeah. But we've made a couple custom ones for him before. Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Okay, well, mahalo everybody for the social media fan questions. Make sure you leave some for our next guest, and maybe your question will make it on the podcast. Okay, so I like to ask wait to the car to go by. I like to ask all of my guests the same question about keeping it aloha. It's the name of the show, and I like to know in your life, how do you keep it aloha?
I think aloha and that term aloha and mana have been used so often. But my mom's definition of aloha is the reciprocity between kanaka and aina. And so if the term is keep it aloha, then the idea is like, how do you upkeep and how do you support that reciprocal nature between kanaka and aina, because we rely on aina to be able to live, as well as how can we be stewards of that. And so if keep it aloha was one part, then it'd be how do we upkeep and how do we be stewards of that reciprocal system between kanaka and aina.
That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of aina, we have a lot of diaspora listeners. So we get a lot of questions about like, how can we still be Hawaiian and whatever. Because they feel sometimes that just because they're not on the aina, they're not Hawaiian enough. What would you say to those people to tell them that they are still Hawaiian even though they're not on the aina? But like we said, keeping it aloha is like that reciprocal relationship between the aina. Is it the aina that they're on now, the soil that they're on now, wherever their feet is planted, or is it like specifically aina in Hawaii?
No, indigenous is an inclusive term. We all have indigenous roots, and so if it's an aina that's over there that you can build a relationship with, then I think that would be the best way to be able to upkeep that form of aloha. And at the same time, I think we have multiple cultural practices that can be encapsulated and taken, to the mainland, just like how we were talking about Japan. Like hula is such a big practice over there. So even the physicality of hula is a form of aloha as well. And so I think that the relationship to aina is one of the most important parts, and it's something that I've only started to really double down on in this past decade of my life. I enjoyed traveling and going all over, and even enjoyed Oahu for a good amount of years. But now, even just planting some of the huli that I have in my yard right now has brought me so much more satisfaction, and gratification, I should say. But yeah, I think there are practices that are a part of our Hawaiian culture that can be taken and done over there. And that's a way to be able to practice culture. And at the same time, maybe there's Aina over there that you can relate to, that you can work alongside or work with maybe other indigenous practitioners out there. And so rather than just saying Hawaiian, I would prefer to just say indigenous and understanding what that relationship looks like.
That's cool. Yeah. Think of it more from an indigenous perspective than a Hawaiian perspective.
Yeah, just like
because I mean, Hawaiian is like under the umbrella of indigenous.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and well, I think we all have indigenous roots to a certain degree, and
I'm 1% North African. I did my DNA test. So I mean, it's indigenous as they get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just connecting back to Aina, reconnecting.
Okay. Cool. All right. So now I want to get into the Aloha shirts, and I shared a little bit about the history of Aloha Friday and Aloha shirts. That's part of the Aloha Friday history on Kimo Kahawano's episode. And during my little blurb about the history, I mentioned it's Aloha shirt, not Hawaiian shirts. And that's something that always really bothers me when I hear people say Hawaiian shirts. It's funny. I have like somebody helping me out, like a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, reach out to some like sponsors."
What app is this or what service is this? Because I've been looking at it.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
But she's not from it.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Okay, I'll reach out to a bunch of," and I was like, "Okay, I have these people who are like into the culture. Like, I'll give you all my prerequisites." And then I get an email from like, I don't know, it's like Aloha Outlet or something.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? What is Aloha Outlet? And so I looked it up, and it was like the most touristy, like Aloha shirts, whatever. And she doesn't know. I was like, okay, just run it by me next time. But it was like the most touristy stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it said Aloha shirts. But I've even had like DMs from like different brands, like, hey, we're a top tier Hawaiian shirt, whatever. We'd love for you to like, just like those brand messages. But I just, one of my biggest pet peeves is when they say Hawaiian shirts. So,
well, and that goes to show, because like I think back, people were using the term Hawaiian very loosely, and so like I think the Hawaiian shirt back then maybe had like a different interpretation than what it means to me currently right now. And so I would love to reclaim that term Hawaiian shirt and then rebuild the identity of that term Hawaiian. I mean, let's not talk about last Tuesday, but I think that this idea of Hawaiian being out there, it's still an identity, and it's identity for all of us, and then I think there's Kanaka too. So there's multiple layers to the identity, but that's one part for us as creatives and us as designers, that we can go out there, tell a new story around the same term, and rebuild what the norm is around that term, And so for me, I would love to take back the Hawaiian shirt and rebuild it to something of respect and regard,
Yeah.
And
I agree. When I Google Hawaiian shirt, it wasn't like this bright floral, touristy image that pops up on Google. If it's a Sig Zane shirt or even other the local Aloha brands, like I would love that. But you see Hawaiian shirt and it's like the most touristy.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Sig Zane. I mean, growing up in Hilo, everybody knows, if you got one Sig Zane, oh, you made it, So I think if, like you said, we're able to like take back that narrative and try to like switch it, and maybe in the next couple of years, with stuff like this and education, maybe it'll start to shift.
Yeah, I mean, even with I like with the term Aloha shirt and then Kimo Kahawano's song too. Like Aloha shirt is still dear to me, and the term Aloha shirt. And even like when we first opened up our Sig on Smith shop, the first song we would play every Friday is It's Aloha Friday. And it was kind of like a joke on my part to be like, we're only open on Fridays, we would play the song, type of thing. But I think Aloha shirt still holds a dear place. But I think for us as creatives, and now there's so many Hawaiian creatives out there, I think now it's up to us to be able to take these kind of, reclaim these words back and rebuild the identity that we want to see behind it,
Awesome. Yeah. So I shared about the history of Aloha Friday.
Yeah.
Can you share the history of the Aloha shirt? Because I think it has roots to like Japan and like plantation workers.
There's plantation workers and kind of taking some of the kimono fabric and then sewing it into shirts that they'd be able to wear. And Dale Hope is kind of like the Aloha shirt historian. But from what my dad told me, that there's actually a few locations down here, two blocks down, because Hilo was a sewing hub, especially during the plantation days, that there were people making Aloha shirts out of kimono fabric here in Hilo too. So I think Hilo has its roots with the term Aloha shirt and with the idea of an Aloha shirt. And as a creative in this industry, hopefully as Sig Zane Designs, we've added a few wrinkles, or maybe we ironed it a little bit. But we're adding a little character to the term Aloha shirt during our time too.
Okay, cool. Well, now that we're on the topic of Sig Zane Aloha shirts, what makes Sig Zane shirts so special? Because they are expensive, but they're quality. Yeah. They're probably the best Aloha shirt you ever have.
Yeah. There's a few things that I feel like separate us, but okay, so we're talking about the made in Hawaii thing, right? Like you gotta really think about it. We're hand printed in Hawaii, so that means there's 4 guys that literally pass a squeegee back and forth on these 30-yard tables, and then you have to think about the company that prints it. Like you got to pay health insurance. You got to pay, like, it's a full company that exists here in Hawaii. It's already expensive to live here in Hawaii. And then on top of that, the sewing company. And so we vendor out these, but we've had relationships with them over my whole lifetime. And so I think it's important for us to be conscious about when you're paying for a certain price, that if you're in a race to get the cheapest shirt, you're making less budget for those people in Hawaii to live. And so if there are versions of that maybe are higher in price, like I know there's some of our peers out there that are in the $200 mark, in $210 even. We have an Aloha shirt that's $245, but $145 is our general price. Mm-hmm. Just think about it and be conscious about that purchasing, that if you're really trying to get the cheapest one, you're actually making less budget for us to thrive as a made in Hawaii company. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I feel like the Aloha shirt should be in that 200 mark for it to be a healthy company, Mm-hmm. And then also at the same time, for us to thrive as a company that's been around for 39 years, how do I make enough budget so that we can pay fair wages or living wages within our company as well? So there's a whole bunch of like systems and cycles that are happening in there. So I totally don't mind if you buy something that's made overseas. It's completely okay. You should. And at the same time, just understand that there's layers to it when you're buying something that's made in Hawaii that is at a certain price mm-hmm. point too. Yeah. Let's not make it a race to the cheapest,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think the average price of a good Aloha shirt is over $100. Yeah. Like even if you go other places. Yeah. But I think the special thing about this, and I'm obviously biased because I'm from Hilo, and but even if I wasn't, just objectively, yeah. the shirts are beautiful. They fit nicely. And they have that story behind it. I think it's hard to get it if you go to like a Ren Spooner or like a Tori Richards. And like I have a Tori Richards shirt, so and it's nice, but it just doesn't have the same meaning behind it. Yeah. So I think that's what for me makes Sig Zane special. Not an ad.
No, I think and you're actually saying that earlier too. But like, what makes us unique? I would say definitely the printed sewn designs in Hawaii. And then to layer onto that, my dad's hand cut artwork. He definitely feels that there's a certain energy transference when there's hand cut, to be able to transfer his energy into the artwork, and then that gets transferred onto the Aloha shirt. Mm-hmm. So that's another layer. And then I think cultural narrative wise, or Kanaka perspective wise, that's something that was unique to us back in the day, but now has flourished. Yeah. And so I think that that's awesome that we were at the beginning of that, mm-hmm. And that hopefully we brought it to enough people that they're inspired to do their thing too. Mm-hmm. But so all of those layers on a physical level, you can turn one of our Aloha shirts inside out. Actually, maybe that shirt right there. Mm-hmm. So one of them is this French seam, but
I never showered yesterday, so it might smell a little bit.
It's all good. But yeah, I feel like we have a signature placket And then even our collars are a certain height. And it's all these small things that we like to put into details. But one of the big things that my dad always made sure is that like the matching pockets is one important part, so that the form factor and look of it is all together. And then secondly is this French seam over here. And so when you're looking at the seam,
can you hold it
it's
up
actually yeah. So when you're looking at the seam, it's really clean, and all the edges are bent in and then sewn. And so you can look at other Aloha shirts too. I mean, not to compare or contrast or anything, but this is just something that like my dad has a value towards craftsmanship. And so these are small calls that he likes to put into his Aloha shirts that I feel definitely separate us.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah. We don't really tout it. We don't really like tout these kind of things, but I think these are all things that my dad definitely has embedded within the company over the years.
Awesome. Super cool. Yeah, I can put that over there.
Yeah.
Just toss it over.
I know. I naturally start putting the buttons. I'm going to start folding it and everything.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, so you talk about made in Hawaii, and one thing that I learned not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, is the term made in Hawaii. And I don't think people really understand what that term means, because there's like a same way like Hawaiian homes, whatever, anything. You have a certain I don't want to say quantum. What is it? Percentage.
Yeah, percentage.
And you only have to be, I think, like 51% or 52%. Did they raise it? 51% to be considered made in Hawaii.
Yep.
So that's kind of crazy. I don't think people are buying things or selling things saying it's made in Hawaii, but like half of the production is like somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like you have some opinion on that.
No. I think we all have to celebrate made in Hawaii for sure. And at the same time, maybe there needs to be designation that, oh, this is 70%, or this is 85%, this is 99% made in Hawaii. I know that when, like, especially like one of my cousins, but Kūhaʻo, she dances in the halau. She creates like these immaculate ohe kapala pieces, and she's actually really good. I wish I was as good as her creating these ohe kapala, but that 100% made in Hawaii, and that should be held at a different degree than, something that got maybe manufactured overseas and got value added 49% in Hawaii. And so maybe just trying to diversify what people see as made in Hawaii, that, yeah, we can do the 51%. That's cool. But maybe there should be other levels of it, so that I think as an audience, they can acknowledge that, oh, there's also different amounts of made in Hawaii that maybe hold more luxury, or hold more elegance, or hold more soul and significance to it. So, yeah, I heard this Made in Hawaii festival was one of the biggest ones ever, and I actually didn't get to attend it myself, but I applaud like the our ability to be economically solvent, especially in this current climate. But at the same time, hopefully as an audience, we can start to discern a little bit that, like, hey, what percentage is this made in Hawaii?
Well, if you are like trying to push that narrative of like this is a made in Hawaii product. Yeah. Which, the festival is good. We had Hawaii versus, we were selling our card game mocabs over there. Oh, I should have brought one for you for this office. You guys would love it. It's like a pigeon, Mad Gabs, where you just have to decipher the gibberish.
Yeah.
So we have a local version that's called mocabs, and we released the dirty version at Made in Hawaii Festival.
Oh, nice.
Like just stuff like boto or like
the extended.
So,
extended pack.
Oh, you guys would love that here. Next time I'm in Hilo, I'll bring some.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something because now I'm part of the Hawaiiverse, and I know about that space too, and I have friends in that also have merch companies, and that's how I learned about it. Like, you only got to be 51%.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just like
and
crazy
even like the holopali, like we're having fun with this shirt because it feels nice and it's breezy. But we wouldn't be able to manufacture that in Hawaii. We just don't have the printing capability nor the sewing capability for that kind of material to be done in Hawaii. And so I think there's always ways to implement Ike Hawaii or implement cultural narrative into your design. And maybe it says designed in Hawaii, maybe.
Designed in Hawaii. Yeah. I think just like using specific words Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, because like, yeah, our cards, but we made in China, or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
like,
totally.
yeah, my Keep It Aloha merch,
Yeah.
it's not even printed here,
Yeah. But just
Yeah,
discerning,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But that's a
Okay.
good conversation. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing it up.
totally. Yeah, it just made me think about it when you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you gotta get going, so I want to come to the back end of the
Yep.
podcast. I would like to know, what is something that you wish people knew about you that they don't?
I don't know if it's just because it's Tuesday after a long weekend, but wow, you get some good questions.
That's what we do here in the podcast.
Right? Growing up, especially in the Kanakaole Hana, that like I've been I've had to do either like different shows or different interviews all the time from when we were like little kids. So I feel like there's so much of me that is already out there. And even more so lately, I'm like, oh, maybe I should start pulling back a little bit. Yeah, I would probably say right now, especially social media wise, I don't really have too much of a presence anymore. But I would say right now, a lot of the work that I've been doing is actually in the background. And so, like I was talking about earlier, but next year spring, I'll be lecturing alongside another teacher, Carla, over at the UH School of Architecture, and teaching a Hawaiian design theory course. And so to me, these are different ways that we can populate our Ike Hawaii into different systems and different platforms to be able to make it as wide as possible. And those are just small examples of background work a little bit that hopefully can make us as people that have to carry on this Ike Hawaii a little bit more economically viable. We all know that there's a place for Aloha shirts in our current economy. And we all know there's a place for all of these Hawaiian inspired products as well. Everything from like scrunchies and like the hair clips.
Yeah, and there's more now than ever before.
Yeah, I just saw the Co-op Monsters, and they have like the Ethereum one that was done. It's actually pretty cool. My daughter loves it. And
They
then
got great stuff at Hanaho. Shout out.
yeah,
to
exactly.
Hanaho.
Auntie Michelle down in
I love
Hanaho
going
over
to
there.
that place.
I think that there's a place for all of these items, especially currently in our economy. And how do we make sure that our Kanaka perspective stays here, no matter what the current system is? If it is a capitalistic system currently right now, make sure that our Kanaka stays here within our economy and that we have a place to stay as well. And so, yeah, I think lately, I'm not really that vocal about it, but I've just been doing a lot more background work that is either different educational initiatives as a part of Edith Kanakaole Foundation, or different versions of design, like leaning into architecture.
Yeah. I don't know if I started thinking about this recently or talked about this with somebody, but sometimes when you get a little bit more successful or you get more lights on, you kind of want to like fade into the back a little bit more. I don't know if that's like, because that's kind of how I'm always like on social media, but like I rarely go out. I only go out if I'm like invited to events to show face and whatever. But like even like if I'm at like a concert or somebody, like I don't want to go. I don't want people to know. I kind of just want to like be fly on the wall. So I don't know if that's kind of like where you're at now too. Or...
Well, I think social media wise, I don't really post too often or anything like that, but like just my priorities changed. Like with my kids, they've become my priority, and so I've just been focusing a lot on them, and then also the different initiatives and new companies, and so it's been pretty busy lately, But I would say that like maybe there's a certain shift of priorities that you focus on other things that you feel is more important rather than just like the idea of what successful looks like out there.
Yeah, my goal is just to get healthy so I can.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm like, I haven't worked out in like legitly like 9 months. So I'm like starting to put on weight. I'm being very vulnerable with everybody. So I'm just like, I'm trying to record as many episodes as I can to finish this year off, so I can just like go hibernate.
Yeah,
then I don't gotta be on video anymore.
Yeah. I've been finding myself just wanting to go holo more often. So I don't know. Maybe I gotta get better with the Sea-Doo or something like that.
You can holo for me because I just want to hibernate.
For sure.
Okay, so before we end the podcast, I gotta know, what is your life hack? Able to think of one.
Yeah, I remember when you asked me that, and Margaret Stanley. She worked with us maybe like 12 years ago. Ooh, might be even 15 years ago now. And I'd always go back and forth with her on all kinds of things, but she taught me so much. And one of the things that she taught me is this thing called the mind dump. I don't know if you do it, but it's such a simple hack. But
I
basically,
do a different kind of dump in the morning. Yeah.
that's like clockwork. Yeah, it's called a mind dump. But basically, putting aside like half hour where you put aside all of your distractions or anything, and just writing down everything that comes to mind that you either have to work on, or things that you have to do, or things that you're thinking about, and writing it all down. And one of the big benefits of that is that you're taking it off of your working hard drive that you have in your head, and you're putting it down onto paper so that you can compute even more things, and it's something that I started. I have these little like books that I used to write down my mind dumps on, and now I do it digitally, of course. But I started it maybe, 15, just about 12, 15 years ago. And that would probably be one of the biggest reasons where I feel like I can take on more opportunities, And so this idea of doing a mind dump has probably been the best life hack that was passed on to me from Margaret.
Wait, so is this like an intentional, like every day at 3:00, or whenever something hits you, you're like, okay, I'm going to take the next 30 minutes to just.
So usually I would do it every Monday.
Okay.
And Monday would be the perfect like structure to kind of set up the week, because then I can schedule 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, or something like that. But now, especially when I never used to use the term anxiety, but when I feel like a little bit anxiety starting to stack up inside, then that's when I take the time just to write everything down, and it kind of calms.
Yeah, I do that with like to-do lists.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Awesome.
mind dump has definitely been something, a life hack of mine.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna start doing that. I get kind of ideas randomly, and sometimes it's hard when I get it while driving.
Yeah.
And what I do is, like, if I can't write it down, especially now because I drive with one arm, I'm just like, I'm almost saying it out loud. Like, if I gotta remember something, I'm just like, okay, remember, don't. Or I guess this is, not a mind dump, but like when I have my surfboard, one time I reversed it into a wall. Because I forgot it was in the back, so I had to get it fixed. So when I have my surfboard with me, I'm always just driving like, don't reverse, don't reverse, don't reverse, don't reverse, don't like. I do stuff like that. So it's like a verbal mind dump. Okay, all right. So I just have my last fast 5 questions. These are rapid fire answers. Okay. Favorite guilty pleasure?
Loco Mocos.
Oh, that's easy. Are you a Cafe 100 Loco Moco fan, or?
Oh, I'm a Loco Moco fan in general.
Okay, it doesn't matter where it's from.
Not to sound like that, but I just had one at Halekulani, and that one was pretty mean the other day.
Okay. I gotta go check that out. Okay, favorite childhood snack?
Fried hole hole.
Cool. Favorite part about being a Kanakaole?
The ability to share and educate.
Okay. Favorite design you've ever done?
Oof. Actually, I'll say the Nike ACGs.
What is that? Is that
slippers? It's a sandal design. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And last one, favorite travel destination?
New York.
New York?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've come to love New York over the years.
What do you love about it?
I think there's a certain amount of like people capital there, like inspired by and some of the great creatives that are out there, all from New York too. So like there's some sort of like energy there that you can tap into, and it's a really invigorating creative energy. So that's what I love about going to New York.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's all we got for you today. Mahalo for inviting us into your space here in Hilo and talking stories, sharing your mana'o. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap up? If not, tell us where we can find you.
No, you can find me or not find me on Instagram at Kūhaʻo, and then other than that through Sig Zane Designs, as well as Paliku Surf, and then of course the Molo Metrics. So other than that, appreciate the time, appreciate you coming to Hilo to talk story over here in the studio a little bit, but no, mahalo nui.
Totally. Okay. Stay tuned. One day we'll have a Keep It Aloha shirt from Sig Zane.
A couple years
putting
it out there.
Yeah, putting it out there. All right. Mahalo Kūhaʻo for joining us on the Keep It Aloha podcast. Spread love, be kind to one another, and mahalo for listening to us today. We have new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you follow us and leave a review. I'm your host, Kamaka, and remember to always keep it aloha.